والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا ما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So, we have so far broken down water into two categories. And I'm just going to quickly do that on the whiteboard, even though at this level, we should know these things already. So just remind ourselves that this is a kind of like fifth level class, and it is not an introductory class. Give me 1 second. Um, oh yes, I need to do that. Okay, so water can be down into two categories. What are those two categories?
Pure and purifying.
Yes, we can do that if you like. And there's another category we can do that. But so that's a label we can give them. That's correct. It's not wrong to say that, but let's start from another way. Let's start from a large body of water and small body of water. Okay, so you're not wrong, Sham. I'm just analyzing it a slightly different way. Small body of water. So what is a small body of water, guys?
Less than 210 liters.
So a bucket of water, a small bathtub of water, etc. Okay, so now small body of water. There's basically oops, three things that could have happened to it.
It could have been used to remove filth.
Mm-hmm. So used to remove filth or ritual impurity. Meaning you used it in ghusl, you used it in wudu, even if there was no filth there, right? That's number one. What else could we do with it? What else could happen to it?
It could be mixed.
Mixed, what do you mean?
Like if like another substance like tea,
Such that it couldn't, what do we say? That it couldn't be?
such that it couldn't be called water anymore.
Exactly, right? So this is a linguistic reason. There is no verse in the Quran, thou shalt not make wudu with tea. Rather, what happens is the Prophet ﷺ showed us that you can make wudu with water, and he didn't make wudu with anything else. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about water, and Allah sent it down to purify us. And so anything that's not water is just linguistically not water, right? How do I do this? I want to, I guess, just like that. Okay. Mixed such that it couldn't be called water anymore. Changed such that it couldn't be called water anymore. Okay, great. What else could happen to it? Somebody other than Badr. I know Badr's been around for a long time. Aman, Yusuf, Sham, Zainabu, uh, Hamza. What else can happen to water? A small body of water. Maybe it was used to remove filth. Maybe it's changed, and maybe what? It's something. We've done that already. Used to become, you used to remove filth or ritual impurity.
Oh, it can become impure
Good. So how does it become impure?
by its color, smell, taste being altered.
Not quite. Nearly, but not quite.
If you use it for wudu, you can no longer use it against correction. Does that count?
That's over there. We used it. We've done that already. I think we have to play a game. Who wants to be a millionaire? I think Badr will be a millionaire by now, but everyone else. Go ahead, Badr, yes.
If it's mixed with an impurity.
Yes. Right. So here, notice Sham. Here we're talking about a small body of water. Okay. It's not even mixed, but comes into contact. Contact with filth. Okay. Comes into contact with filth. Okay, Sham. So what you're thinking about is up here, a large body of water. So the sea, even if you put 10 tons of urine into the sea, it's still pure, unless the sea changes or this area of the sea changes, right? A what is it? You're swimming next to the carcass of a big blue whale, right? Here is a former big blue that's come to the surface, right? The water next to the carcass of this big blue whale stinks. Okay, so there's all this stuff coming out of this big blue whale. It's a huge, huge thing, right? That is filthy, but the rest of the sea is fine. So with a large body of water, we have to. It can either it has to change in order to become filthy. Okay, whereas a small body of water, it's a mere contact. Even if there's no change whatsoever, you can't see any of the najasa, smell any of the najasa, or taste any of the najasa. It doesn't matter. Does that make sense?
Yes, that seems very logical, actually.
Yeah. Okay. But it's not based on logic though. Okay, so that's a good. It's nice that it's logical because it helps us understand it. But why is it important that it's not based on logic? And we're gonna have to retract a bit. We go back to we didn't cover Sheikh Noor in the translator. He added a whole section on morality, etc. Why is it important that it's not actually based on logic?
Based
Uh,
on nas or action of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi
Hmm.
wasallam.
So is morality based on logic, or is morality based on what Allah tells us to do and not to do?
What Allah tells us to do and
Right?
not to
So in
do.
principle, Allah could invert it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could say, if a small body of water only becomes filthy through change, but a large body of water becomes filthy through mere contact. You're like, what? So yeah, like what? So if if the Pacific Ocean comes into contact with one dead fly, it becomes filthy. I was like, okay, it's basically impossible for that not to happen. And then, but if you had a bucket of water, even if you put 10 dead flies in it, it would be fine. So that would be the opposite. It would be very difficult to use the Pacific Ocean, very easy to use a bucket, and it kind of be the opposite of how you and I would think, right? But that's what, if Allah said, that's what I want you to do, then that's how it would be, right? So the Sharia is logical in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wise. And Allah generally doesn't tell us to do things that we don't understand. But it is not based on logic. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Khair. So that's a discussion in usul fiqh and theology. Okay, not fiqh proper. Okay, so anyway, mere contact. So now large body of water. Let's do this. Let's copy and paste the same things. Okay, I need to. Hang on a minute. I need to move this around a little bit. Mhm. No, I'm moving. Put it down here. There we go. Okay. So we have water, and it's either of two categories. Okay. Small body of water. Yeah, I'll move this thing up here. Small, whoops. No, I can't move it. Okay, it's good enough, inshallah. I was trying to move the text, but I can't move the text without the arrow. It doesn't matter. Okay, large body of water. Okay, so now, Same thing with large body of water, and the same breakdown, but as we're going to see, is not very significant. Uh, Okay. So now we're gonna basically do what Sham did at the beginning. So Sham did the way the book does, which is ruling and then what happens. So we'd kind of do the other way around. Okay. So here's water. It's either a large body of water or a small body of water. Either it was used, right? In both cases, either used, contact with filth, or mixed such that you couldn't call it water anymore. Okay. So let's give a ruling to each one of these. Okay. And now we're going to give a ruling to each one of these. How do I do this? I want to change the color of the text. How do I do this? Okay, don't know how to do that.
So actually, one dropped another chart in the WhatsApp chat if it's useful.
Okay, جزاك خير. Okay. Text color, here we go. Oh, we go to green. Okay, so Bismillah. Green. Okay, so what is this then? A large body of water that has been used to remove filth. Let's skip that one. Let's go to this one here first. Because this is logic. We are using logic all the time. Okay, so a large body of water that comes into contact with filth. Okay, your 2-year-old is playing in the river and urinates. What happens to the river?
Nothing.
Nothing. So what is it? Is it purifying, or filthy?
It's pure.
And it's not purifying.
It is purifying.
It is purifying. Okay, purifying. Okay, it's pure and purifying. Or we call it just purifying. Okay, great. So a large body of water comes into contact with filth is still fine. Okay, so now we can use our logic and say by extension, if filth, right, if a fly falls into the Atlantic Ocean and dies, right, and it's still fine, okay, then that's pure. By extension, what if you made wudu in the Atlantic Ocean, right? Or I made ghusl. Someone says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, I'm making ritual bath, I'm making ghusl, they jump in and then they jump out. Does the water become filthy? Is it become
Yep. No.
no? Does it become used?
Yes, but it's still
So
no,
the
actually.
whole of the Atlantic Ocean is used,
No.
right? So the answer is no, right? The answer is no, it does not become used. So a large body of water could never become used. It is still pure and purifying. Okay. Okay, great. Now, the Atlantic Ocean is now mixed with so much candy floss that it is a giant it's just a big thing of sloppy candy floss. Like that's not water anymore. That's like liquid or cornflakes, right? British people will love our cornflakes, right? Americans like cornflakes too, right? To some extent. Yes, no?
Uh, it's it's pure but not purifying.
I was asking a question about cornflakes first. Who's do Americans like cornflakes? Not really.
We don't really eat them.
Yeah.
No.
Technically, Sheikh, the Americans invented cornflakes.
And you
Kellogg
invented
invented
you
them.
invented everything, Sham,
So,
but we
But they're
invented America.
overrated.
Yeah, overrated. In England, it's quite important. So anyway, in
Yes, and
England,
you invented India too, mashallah. All right.
and if you're
Americans are
Yem and if you're Yemeni, Yusuf, what do? You eat cornflakes with your hands.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's how you do it, bro. Okay, all the way. Okay. So anyway, you've put so many cornflakes. Um, so I think somebody is editing. If you can not do that because I'm trying to. I was just typing about to type. How do I stop? I can't type anymore. There we go. So someone could just I believe other people can move the types. Anyway, so here is you get you get this large body of water and it's changed such that you couldn't call it water anymore. That is not water anymore, right? There was a river basin, which is no, there's no river anymore. It's just mud, right? There is no more water, right? Could is it pure and purifying?
No.
Okay, is it pure?
No. Yes.
It's pure, right? But it's not purifying, right? So again here, it's not really logic. This is language. It's like that's not water, Habibi. That's mud. That's not water. That's diluted whatever something else. Okay, we might not usually put this category here, but in principle that would happen because it's not water. It's actually it's no longer in this chart because the chart is underwater. Okay, khair. But usually that's not a practical thing at all. Okay, right. Now, similarly, the issue with coming into contact, what if it's changed significantly, but so if it's changed significantly was unavoidable, right? So under this category here, we spoke about that what if it was like a not a lake, but a small pond, and the pond has so many leaves in it, that's kind of becoming murky, like very, very murky. Like it's like, it's water, but not really water. That's fine as well. Okay, so things are unavoidable as well. That like a small body of it's not a small body of water in the sense that we're categorizing it, but like a small pond that there's lots of fish in it, or lots of leaves in it, or lots of mud in it, and it's like really kind of almost like muddy water, very very muddy. Yeah, like moss and these kind of things. It's still fine, right? Algae, right? So is it algae or algae?
Algae.
Like a
Algae.
gene.
Algae. Okay. We in America okay. Can somebody just move so I think people can edit, so if it just not move things, inshallah. Okay, in English we call it algae. Okay, so anyway, that's the basic picture there. So now we're going to the small body of water. So notice we're going to stem from contact, right? So let's go from there. So a small body of water comes into contact with filth. What happens? You have a spot of blood on your finger. You put it in a cup of tea, in a glass of water. You take it out. There's no sign of filth or taste or anything in the water. What do we say?
It's impure.
It is
It's
impure.
impure.
Mere contact. Okay, mere contact. So this is the difference. It is impure. So it is not pure, nor is it purifying. So what can I do with this water? Can I drink it?
No.
Can I use it for wudu?
No.
If I
No.
if I if I put my finger in the water, and then my kittens knock it over and spit it onto my clothes, can I pray?
No.
Right, so that's what we mean by filthy. You can't drink it. If it was on your body, you couldn't worship, right? And you couldn't purify yourself with it, right? Could you give najas water to, for example, you have a bunch of so najas water and give it to your sheep to drink or your cat to drink?
No.
You
No
can.
idea.
No.
It's just water that okay, so technically speaking, it's filthy, but yeah, it's fine. Cats can eat filth, it's fine. Uh, chicken.
So Chef,
Go
the
ahead.
principle of giving animals water that we ourselves wouldn't consume doesn't exist?
Yeah, we ourselves wouldn't assume because it is medically harmful does exist. Like that would harm you, Like this
Oh,
is,
okay, I understand.
but it's not actually. It is a ritual issue, so it's like it doesn't matter, right? You know, so that's fine, right? Okay, so okay, so now by extension, it's kind of the other round actually. So by extension, then I use a small amount of water, right? I use a small amount of water. I pour it over my limbs while I'm making wudu. That water comes off my limbs. What happens to that water?
Cool.
It's pure but not purifying. It cannot be used for wudu again.
Okay, right? Pure, but not purifying. Now, there's a narration from Imam Abu Hanifa that it's actually filthy. Okay, it's actually filthy. It's not pure, it's actually filthy. And it's alleged as well that he actually had a vision, kind of like a kashf, where he actually saw the sins in the wudu water. So like, right, because wudu is actually a physical process, not just a spiritual process. You have to understand that in the it's kind of like that there's a realm that we see and a realm that we don't see. In that realm that we don't see, in that ghaib, there's physical things. So sins actually have physical reality, right? So you're physically washing off sins in that physical realm. Okay? So if you look at it from that point of view, it's actually filthy, right? Because you so that's really important to understand. Like I am making wudu, I am physically washing off sins, right? So anyway, it's narrated from Imam Abu Hanifa that he saw that, and for which reason he said it's actually filthy, right? And so this is an important thing to understand. Same thing with zakat, right? Zakat is like you know, trying to, tax avoidance, right? Tax evasion is illegal. Tax avoidance is great. You pay your tax, you're about to pay 2 million in tax. Hey, well, I'll pay half of that. If I can save more, right? I'll do that, right? Tax avoidance. Whereas a wudu avoidance and zakat avoidance is not a good idea because you are trying to get rid of filth from your money and filth from your body. It's actually physical filth. So it's like, oh my God, I have to make wudu again. That's good to make wudu again. It's not bad to make wudu again. It's great. It's like I'm really, really happy to like, oh, alhamdulillah, make wudu, right? It's an act of worship, okay? So anyway, in the Shafi school, we say it is pure, but not purifying, right? So that means you couldn't gather a bunch of water from someone's wudu and make wudu with it. But what could you do? Think about the word gather.
You can wash things with it,
Okay, you can wash things with it, but
drink it.
think about the word gather. So there's one person making wudu, I collect the water that's used, and it's pure but not purifying. There's two people making wudu, I gather the water together. Three, four, five, six, a million. What happens when you get to like 100 people making wudu? What's going to happen?
There's a large body
Gonna
of water.
Good. So when it becomes a large body of water that is used, it is now in a different category, right? So what we could do is if you gather that all together, okay, and you put it into this category here, not gonna work. Hello, I need to go up. There we go. No, yes, right? You could actually put it over there. So you have all this water that's pure but not purifying, and then you gather it together, and now you put it into another category because it's now, if it's more than 216 liters, it is now considered a large body of water that was used to remove filth or impurity, but it's now purifying. Does that make sense?
Sheikh, and even if one is 100% sure that every bit of this large body of water is
Is you
ritually impure.
Oh no,
Uh,
if it's ritually impure, same thing. So ritually impure. So we'll do the same thing here. We can get this and put it here as well. We can do this. Whoops. So I'm gonna get filthy water. And hello, how's this gonna work? Just about, yes. And I can put it here. So there's filthy water, right? You have half a liter of filthy water. She has 2 liters, 3 liters, 4 liters, 5 liters. Everyone's putting these things together. I gather it all together and I put it in a big container. Okay, and I will look at this water. It was large, so now I have more than 216 liters of water that has come into contact with filth, but that's pure and purifying. Does it make sense?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
just because it's now in a different category, right? But so as long as it's a small amount of water, it's impure, right? But now if you put it all together, it becomes pure and purifying, right? Okay, now we have the last category, which is uh, um, it's changed so much that you couldn't call it water anymore, and we're going to call this pure simply because it's not water. Okay. Now, in general, anything here that's unavoidable, right, will be ignored. So we say, for example, a dead fly. This comes in the hadith, and it's a general observation in the Sharia. So a fly falls in your water. It doesn't matter. Okay, why? It's unavoidable. You know. In the past, you're milking your cow. Has anybody milked a cow?
I've only
No.
seen it.
I've only seen it. Okay. Okay. So anyway, you forgot to download the Don't Move Your Feet app. Okay. So you didn't download the Don't Move Your Feet app. So the cow, unfortunately, is going to move its feet. So you're milking this cow, and the cow steps in the pail of milk. Okay. What's going to be on its legs?
Okay.
Feces.
Right. So you've just got feces in your milk. Right. It doesn't matter. Just throw it out. It's okay. Why? Unavoidable. Right. Kind of a difficult thing to avoid. Okay. In the past, you're walking down the street, right? You just made wudu, and then you walk down the street in Brentwood in California where it's dry and hot, and there's cow dung on the ground, and sheep dung on the ground, and horse dung on the ground, and then it all gets pounded into the dust, and the dust goes into your face. So now you have dust from cow dung on your wet face, right? It doesn't matter. Why? It's unavoidable, right? So this is the general picture, unless it's unavoidable, right? So in general, as we mentioned many times, the Sharia, anything that's normal and regular, a difficulty is overlooked. Like that's not, that's not, it's overlooked, right? So there'll be things that will be
Would
specific.
that
Go ahead.
would that be applicable for washing machine?
Washing machine is slightly different. Washing machine, I think you can look at it in different ways. It's not an issue of unavoidable, but the issue of how it works. As far as I understand a washing machine, it doesn't matter if you put filthy clothes in it. Allahu Alam. But you might look at it another way. But as for a washing machine, I don't think
Okay.
you don't have to look at it from the point of view of difficult to avoid. I don't think so. I think it's just the nature of the washing machine and how most washing machines work. I don't think it's an issue. Wallahu alam. That's in my opinion. Wallahu alam. Okay, so everyone's happy with this?
Yeah. Sheikh, I've got one question.
Just
It's a practical.
1 second, just before you ask your question, can you
Mhm.
have a thumbs up? Everyone's following. Aman, Azhar, Badr, Farhan, Hamza, Muhammad Sabir, Musa. Oh, forgive me. Ola BC, Zainabu. You both Nigerian, right? Yeah. Okay. So when I see Zain, whenever I knew somebody called Ahmadu, I was like, and Mahmudu. It's like, okay, he must be Nigerian. And you put the dhammas at the end. Okay, Sham, you good? Abdullah, Yusuf, Yusuf, Zayan, Zaid. Yep, great. Okay, go ahead. Was it Farhan you asking a question, or was that
Yeah, it was me. Um, it's a practical question. I once tried to take ghusl with uh, like a small bucket, and then yeah, every time I poured water over my head, it splashed like everywhere, and also into my bucket every time. And every time I did that, I emptied the bucket, and then filled it again, and it happened over and over. So would uh, used water, even if uh, every time, even if you can't avoid it, make the whole bucket impure?
okay? So is used water impure?
Uh, Not impure, but can't I use it for ghusl? Not
Right.
purifying. I meant not
So
purifying.
so let's do another diagram, okay? Okay. So let's do another diagram. 1 second. Okay, I need a score for this sketch. Okay, so please be generous in your grading. Uh, this is my bucket of water. Okay, and it is filled with water. Here. Okay, this is my water inside it, okay? And this is going to be a small amount of water. So let's say in this bucket there is, for example, 5 liters of water, okay? It's quite a lot of water to make ghusl, but that's fine, okay? Five liters of water, okay? So now, what's going to happen is this person is making wudu or making ghusl, okay? And every now and then, droplets of water keep going back in, okay? Okay? So now what's happening is the percentage, right? The percentage of water versus used water, okay, is decreasing. Is that correct? So basically each time he's scooping water out and then more water is going in, the used water is being, some of the used water is being added, right? And so each time it starts off with, for example, 5 liters, and then he scooped out half a liter, put over his head, and then maybe a little bit went back in. So there's 4.5 liters there, and a few drops of used water went back in. Then he scoops out more, and there's 4 liters left, but then some more water goes in. So the percentage of water against used water is decreasing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to play a game. We're going to say, let's assume that this was not used water, but this was orange juice, right? How do you say orange juice in German, Farhan? Something Saft?
Orangensaft.
Orangensaft. Okay, help me spell this, okay? Orangensaft. Is that right?
You missed an N after
And
the
sorry.
E.
Orangensaft. Yeah, we're doing good?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Right. Okay. So we're going to pretend it's orange juice. Okay. So now I'm going to ask the question, if it were orange juice, would it have changed the water such that you couldn't call it water? Okay, so he does one scoop. Okay, he has a scoop. He scoops it from his hand or whatever it is, and he scoops out half a liter, puts it over his head, puts it over his body, and it's all going back into the water. Okay, so now it's 4.5 liters of water plus maybe a couple hundred, or let's say 50 ml of orange juice goes back in. Would it still be water?
I would say so.
Okay. Second scoop. You scoop again, and there's now 4 liters left there, and more another 50, 100 mil of used water goes back in. If that were orange juice, would it have changed the water?
Maybe.
Maybe. You keep going until you can say definitely, Wallahi al-Azim, I can swear by Allah, right? This water had those droplets that were going back in, had they been milk, had they been water, juice, had they been something that had a kind of some kind of smell, right? This would have changed so much that you couldn't call it water anymore. You'd have to call it diluted orange juice or diluted milk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone's following?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So that's the game that we play. And so if it hasn't changed or you're not sure, then it's still pure and purifying. Okay.
Okay. So the first droplets wouldn't matter.
The first, second, third, depending, and then you realize, whoops, I'm dropping too much, stop doing it, you know? But imagine if you had,
Oh,
for example, 500 mil of 500 milliliters of water, okay? And then all the droplets keep falling back in, right? You could imagine that they probably would change, right? Because you're kind of using, you probably use that all anyway. It's going to be very difficult to kind of like make also with five, like with a, with a small bottle of water, it's quite difficult to make also. And then all of it is falling back into the bucket. Let's say you were standing in the bucket, you know? So then it's like all falling back in, and it's like, well, it's quite difficult to make also with 500 ml of water, unless you're Mauritanian. Okay, makes sense?
Makes sense. But is
Okay.
it because of
Alles
the
gut? Is that right? Alles gut?
alles good?
Yes, alles gut. Well, fantastic. Okay. So inshallah, in this
Yeah.
class, you'll learn every single thing apart from Shafi fiqh. You'll learn German, what's it called, the early 2000s cinematography, something else, Sham, right? Uh, okay, Bismillah. Go ahead.
Is it because one can't avoid these droplets,
No,
or
so this is
because
nothing. This is nothing to do with difficulty. This is to do with just the. It's not excused. It's just that it is not. It is not. We are basically saying it is not pure and purifying water. It is something else. So we are trying to judge when it would be when we can rule that it's something else. That this is not pure and purifying water. So we're using orange juice or milk or something like that as an estimation to help us judge could we whether this thing is still essentially pure and purifying water, or is it simply pure water? That's what we're doing.
Okay,
Okay.
understood.
So now we're going to play the same game with najas. Okay. Okay. So now we can play the same game with filth. Okay. So this is a baby pool. Okay. A baby pool that has 5,000 liters in it. Okay. Probably more than that. I don't know. Right. This is the baby pool. Okay. Baby swimming pool. Okay. Now, we all know what happens in the baby swimming pool. We don't have to explain. But basically what's going to happen then is so now we're going to imagine that these babies, they urinate urine that doesn't have a smell and doesn't have a taste and doesn't have a color. Colorless, odorless urine. Okay? Does that make sense? So now that we're going to have to say the percentage of pure water versus filthy water, okay, is decreasing, correct?
Yes.
Everyone's following? So we're trying to judge now, like there's filth that is going into this water. And I know that if this large body of water actually changes in taste, color, or smell, then it'll be filthy. The problem is the filth that is being added is colorless, odorless, tasteless, right? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're going to say, let's assume that this urine that is coming out of this baby's is ink, okay? Is vinegar. Or something with a really strong smell. Um,
Chlorine.
Chlorine. Okay, that's going to have a strong smell, right? Right. And that's also, so now what's going to happen with the baby pool is they're going to put tons of chlorine in it, right? So now they're covering the smell. So let's imagine the chlorine that they put in there that covers the smell, right, is not there. Okay. So now we're going to say, we're going to do the same thing. After how many, so what's an estimation? Okay, 5 million babies have bathed in this pool. 5 million babies. Okay, what's the chance of none of them urinating, right? Do your statistics. How much are they going to urinate? This, whatever it is, you're going to a certain point say that's not possible, right? That if this is the water, right? I have 5,000 liters of water in here. By this time, the amount of urine that must be in here from these babies, right, is definitely amount to have changed. So again, we're not so here we're looking to see can we see the color, right? Not that you couldn't call it water anymore, right? That was with something else. That was judging, is it pure or is it purifying? Here we're judging, is it pure and purifying, or is it filthy? So all I want to know is, would you now, if you had that many babies urinating in this pool, if you had, would you see the color? Would you see this? Would you notice the smell? Would you taste it if you went into the water or not? Right? And I'm gonna say, let's assume it was ink. Let's assume it was vinegar. Let's assume it was chlorine. Would you smell it? Would you taste it, etc.? So the percentage can be way less, right? But the point is, could you notice it or could you not? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Azhar, Badr, Hamza,
Yes.
Yes, sure.
everyone's
So
following?
would this of water then also not be count as water anymore? Or
We count it as filthy
was,
water now. So now we're judging: is it water? Is it pure and purifying water, or is it filthy water?
but a large body of water is always purifying, or am I mistaken?
Not if it changes.
Hmm.
Right. So now the issue is, well, I would never notice the change because what is being added to it is something that is filthy with the same color, taste, and smell. So how do I estimate that? I say, let's imagine it was ink. It was ink. Let's imagine that it's chlorine. Let's imagine that it's vinegar. Something that was very strong smell, very strong taste, very strong color. Would it have changed it or not? Would you notice the water to be different? Yes. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So somewhat abstract, but H3O. What's H3O? Sorry, uh, no, it's not H3O. It's called
H2O.
H2O2. H2O2. What's H2O2 called?
Hydrogen peroxide.
Hydrogen peroxide, right? So hydrogen peroxide, let's get some hydrogen peroxide and put I'm going to get a big container of hydrogen peroxide and I'm going to put a tiny drop of filth in it. So what's going to happen to this hydrogen peroxide? It's not water, right? So I'm going to put some filth in it. What's going to happen to it now?
No, it's not water.
It's not water, and I put some filth in it, it's all going to become filthy. Okay. Now I pour this hydrogen peroxide. As far as I understand, hydrogen peroxide does not taste any different, does it? Does it taste any different to? I don't, as far as I understand, it just looks the same. It looks everything's like water basically. So you pour that into this thing, and you wouldn't notice any difference. So then I'm like, oh, how am I gonna find out whether it's filthy or not? I say, well, let's assume that it was something else that you would notice, right? Does it make sense, inshallah?
Yes. That makes
Yes.
sense.
Okay, cool.
But so then if a lot of that is like a assumption and theoretical, then if you're not sure, would you
Exactly.
just
So you
consider
say,
it?
I don't know. Okay, well, the default is pure then. There we go. The default hasn't changed, right? Or or even let's say a reality, like here is a small pond, okay? May Allah protect us, your cat died in the pond. Okay, you came home and the cat was dead in the pond. May Allah protect our cats, okay? And it was there actually for like a day and a half, okay? So now, like you take the cat out, you do a little sermon, right? Do whatever it is. You can bury it. You can't do salat janazah, but you can bury the cat, right? But now you're like, I'm not sure if does a pond smell or not. I can't work it out. So like, I'm not really sure. You ask your wife, she's like, no, I'm not really sure. So you're not really sure whether or not it's changed. The default is it has not changed, right? There we go.
Sheikh,
Yeah.
would it be allowed to, let's say there's fell poop into the large body of water? Uh, would it be allowed to take like water to purify oneself from the area where the poop is?
Yeah, you can, yeah.
So yeah, it would be allowed in theory.
Yeah, yeah. Let's imagine, for example, that, yeah. So it's like, let's say, like there was a small pond of water, okay, and there's dry cat, waste right next to it. That cat is really dry, just goes in, does not affect the water whatsoever. So, and like you make wudu right next to it, yeah, you can do that. I mean, you don't, nobody really want to, but okay. Go ahead, Musa.
Afwan, so we're saying the difference is that with a small body of water, please correct, but the small body of water, we have to be certain itself that the water in its state or the water itself changes in order to be classified as something different compared to a large body of water. We have to be certain that the water itself will change in terms of like smell, taste, or sight, right?
So the last question was change in general. If we're not sure about change, or we're not sure about any change in status, the default is it's not there. So I'm not sure whether the water came into contact with filth. It's still pure. I'm not sure if I can notice any smell in it, and it's a large body of water. It's still pure. I'm not sure if it would have changed with that much filth going into it. Then it's still pure. That's what we're saying.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, coming back to the bucket of water,
Yes.
see, practically, if a person is taking ghusl to remove, if he's taking a fardh ghusl and is bathing with a bucket of water, it's kind of inevitable some water will splash back into the bucket of water.
Mm-hmm.
So will that will come into something that is overlooked?
No, because the issue is that it's practically if you do that, right? If you do that, you're not going to be putting that much water back in. You know what I'm saying? Like most water, the water. So let's say I have a bucket, right? You are outside. Okay, you're having a bucket shower outside of your house. Okay, there's an area behind your house. There's nobody there, and you're having a bucket shower in this area. So the default is the used water goes somewhere else. It doesn't go back into the bucket. So even if a small amount goes in there, it's not going to be a big deal. So if you I gave you, for example,
What I'm
I gave you 2 liters of water. That's not a lot of water, but I gave you 2 liters of water to make ghusl. Okay? So you're just going to be making ghusl, and the water is going to be going on your body and then coming off your body onto the ground, and a little bit's going to splash back in, and that's about it. It's not practically a difficult thing.
uh, the thing is, mm, only the water that is that comes out of ghusl, it does not have the what do we say uh, the ruling of najas, right?
Yeah,
It
it's
is
co- it's
just
considered you it's
in,
considered used. Yeah, it's used.
yes, that's it. Just because it doesn't make it things mutanajas, right?
No, it does not.
That's it's not like that. So unless it is like it becomes like the orange juice.
It's like
It's
orange juice.
considered like an orange juice.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Now I understand. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Mhm. However, there's a difference. Used, it would actually be offensive to drink used water, whereas not offensive to drink milk or orange juice. So that's a slightly different water.
Understood.
Yeah. So if you took water from someone's wudu and drank it, that would be offensive. Right. That's the only difference. Okay, go ahead, Yusuf, Zayan.
Actually, a quick question on that. So, this method where you would swap out the impure liquid at hand with something else that's strongly smelled, like vinegar or ink, how do you know when to implement that, right? Because in the example of the baby pool,
Yeah, so we're saying something that so like if there was something that didn't have so it's not reality, right? Baby urine has a smell and a taste and color, right? So we're just saying
Mhm.
so it is in the scenario where you're trying to judge something that doesn't have any different characteristics. What do you do? So we say with used water, right, or pure water, we're going to say let's imagine that it has normal characteristics like milk and orange juice. And with filth, if the filth is exactly the same as the water, let's assume that it's ink. Let's assume that it's vinegar or something like that. But if it does have a smell like normal urine, right? If it does have a smell like a normal dead cat, right? Here's a dead cat in a small pool of water in a small pond in the back of your house, and you're like, oh, you don't have to assume that. So let's imagine that the cat's corpse was a chunk of ink. Would it have changed it? We don't have to do that. So like, here's the cat. Can you smell can you smell the odor of the corpse in the water? No. Okay, there we go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Sheikh,
Yeah.
regarding
Okay.
the
We
tap
just want
water,
last question on this.
sometimes,
Inshallah. I just want to go back, inshallah. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes the water is really heavily fluorinated.
Yeah.
So there is actually a chlorine taste.
Yeah.
That is fine, I presume, because it's
Yeah.
a taste.
So the chlorine has two significance. Two things. Number one is, so in terms of changing the water such that you couldn't call it water, you say no, this is still water. Like even the baby pool. So you go into the baby pool, that is still water. That's very, very strong, right? You go to take kids to a baby pool, it's really strong. Like it stinks. You might get a headache, but it's still water. That is not diluted chlorine. You couldn't call it something else, right? Okay? You couldn't call it something
Yes,
else.
understood.
You would still
Understood.
call it water, right? That's one consideration. The other consideration is that did the chlorine, when you're judging a large body of water, has it changed in taste, color, and smell because of filth? And you say no. So yeah, but it hasn't because you've blocked it. So you blocked it because you put in something like earth, you put in something like perfume, you put in something like chlorine. But if the chlorine wasn't there, you would have smelt it, right? So that's what's relevant with the chlorine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. One final thing, even if it is taken into a small body, if it becomes a small body of water, like this chlorinated water coming from a
Yeah.
large body,
Yeah.
is
So you
taken
had
into a bucket,
you
it
took a
is fine, right?
you took a bucket of baby pool water that's very strong. If you drank it, it would be very, very difficult to drink. Heavily chlorinated water. Okay. But I say, what is this? I take it to a Bedouin at the time of the process. I'm saying, what is this? Ma hada?
Water.
And he says, ma, right? So he could call it ma, he could call it water, and he called it ma lahu riha qawiyya, right? Water that has a strong taste. But he could call it both, as opposed to I'm giving you some chai, and I make normal British tea for you, and you're like, sorry for you, but this tastes like water, right? British tea compared to proper chai is like doesn't taste right. So metaphorically, you called my tea water. That's metaphorical, right? So juice, metaphorically, we can call it water. Tea, metaphorically, can call it water. It's not
But it's
literal,
still tea.
right? But it's tea.
Yeah, but
So
it's
has it
still tea.
changed? Haqiqah, has the
Yeah,
nature
understood.
of what it is changed, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, understood. Understood. Sure.
Similarly with, for example, when we come to animals later on, right? Um, Later on, we're going to see, for example, the difference between a wolf and a dog, right? Basically the same thing, right? They're basically the same thing, right? But they're not. You ask a Bedouin, say, what is this? He says, that's a dog. So what's this? That's a wolf, you know? So one is pure and one is najas, right? A wild donkey and a donkey. One is edible, one is not edible, right? But they ask, what is this? He says, has one name for it, and this has another name for it. So so the issue is in the by default, something is defined by revelation, Sharia itself. Okay, if it cannot be defined by revelation, it's defined by Arabic language. That's the next stop. If we can't do that, then we're going to go to urf and ada. We're going to go to what is it conventionally? What would you not linguistically, but what would you label it as, right? So as long as we have the second stop, which is language, we're going to use it. Say, what would you call this? Call that water. Would you call this? I call it this. Would you call that? Right? That's what we're going to be using. Okay. We have to stop here, inshallah ta'ala. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك